a spearhead, or that's this or that.
Right.
Or you find somebody like Remy, or I got a friend named Ike Rainey who's really big into artifacts. And if you find something, what you think it is, it's kind of like the first time I hunted in Africa. I thought I'd shot a springbuck or I thought I'd shot a diker, and it turned out it was a springbuck. It's like, oh, okay, there's only 7,000 species of animals out here. So I think arrowheads are the same way. It's amazing. But to think, you're right. I mean, think of somebody sat down thousands and thousands of years and napped that out. And how many times did they not get it right? You can say that's perfect.
Yeah, they probably had to do a lot of them. A lot of them probably broke off wrong.
Maps.
I mean, it's
horrendous.
probably not a very good success rate, especially when you're working with flint.
Yeah,
I'm
Chipping
gonna
away at it, but when they
rust
get
and
good at
die.
it, it's such an art.
Yeah.
Move on
Like
to the
when
next
you
map.
pick one up, like a real flint arrowhead. God, so there's a lot of guys that make them now, though, unfortunately. So there's a lot of forgeries.
Correct.
Yeah, 'cause
Correct.
a lot of nerds, a lot of archery nerds. They get real good at it and then just leave them scattered around places or pretend they found
Exactly.
them. You know,
You could do that. Just almost, yeah.
you totally could do that, but that's a legit one that was actually pulled out of the ground.
It makes me less whine when you know, like if you're out in Utah and you have success in elk woods and you're butchering an elk and trying to get them packed out when you're just having to resharpen your knives. Like, it's the least I can do is resharpen this knife.
Right.
I mean, these guys had to nap out a head. I mean, how long did that take just to go hunt an elk, you know?
Yeah,
So-
they lived for thousands of years with no metal.
Oh, I know. I tell you something that's interesting. We hunted in a place in Montana where it was on the Milk River, and they had what they called a buffalo drop on this property.
Oh, wow.
And so if you went to where this buffalo drop was, you could go to the base of it and you could find there wasn't any much left now. We used to hunt back in
Horrendous
the
map.
day, mostly in the
So
I hadn't
boring,
been since
everybody's
2000,
camping.
I think it was 2010
Terrible.
was the last time I had went out there. But at the base of that, you used to find all kind of bones, you know, bison bones, you know, buffalo and stuff. But you would sometimes find these little tiny heads. And they didn't look like this,
They're real
which is
small.
interesting. What Remy brought up, maybe that was
gonna go
fishing
die.
or something. I don't know.
I can
But all the
skip.
heads we would find would be tiny little, almost like bird points, is what I felt like when I wanted to call them. I've heard them called before.
Of course you
And
did.
supposedly, what they did is they didn't necessarily weren't trying to kill the buffalo. They would hurt them, and they would just kind of peck them
From
with
them.
arrows, and then they would run the buffalo off
Garbage.
of this cliff. And so
Get it.
it basically
Another
died coming
garbage
off the
bin.
cliff. And it was so cool, across the valley, you could still see all those stone rings
Artillery,
where
these people.
supposedly the ladies or the squaws would sit there and look back, and as soon as the men basically had, you know, whatever amount of buffalo, I guess, over the drop, they would come and butcher, and the men would go back and, you know, smoke the peace pipe and relax. So times have changed a lot.
Yeah.
So I
Remy
thought
was
that was
telling
interesting.
me about this one site where they had a buffalo drop, and the pile of buffalo was so large, and there was so much decay
Yeah.
that it actually created a fire.
Holy
It
cow.
like started on fire because they're all just rotting and fermenting and
Just
there's some
hot,
sort of
nasty.
combustion. And so the entire side of the cliff was black from these buffalo falling off of this place, rotting, and then
Created a fire.
Yeah. I mean, I
That's
don't even know how
crazy.
that would work.
I don't either, but I do know that those buffalo drops do exist, and it's pretty fascinating. And the place we're hunting is a private landowner. He was a rancher, had some cows, and he was very funny. He did not want us to video on any of our episodes or anything to do. And back then we were videoing. I was working with Bill Jordan, and we had a show on TNN back in the day. And he's like, "Do not bring your cameras. I don't want any cameras around here." So because they'll come and all of a sudden they'll set this up as a historical site, and I'll have.
Right.
So he was really funny about it. So I didn't even take a lot of pictures of it because I was always like, "Hey, you know, this guy didn't want us to take any pictures and talk about it." But man, every time I'd come back, you know, for morning hunt or we'd go scout, I'd come back and like, man, look at the buffalo drop. Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
like a little kid, like a little 10-year-old kid Boy Scout, and like, look at this, here's a head, or here's a buffalo.
Yes, he has a
horn
liver
or
done.
skull.
Just sitting in the middle.
Most of everything that would
Nobody's
have been
shooting.
there had already been picked through because it's right off kind of a county road, and so most of the locals knew about it. And of course, you know, he's had kids and grandkids. Just kind of rummaged through it, but it was pretty interesting. But every time you'd go, you'd find something. So it was really interesting.
It just really stretches your mind and your imagination to imagine living like that back then, and that these
Oh,
people,
look, another horrible
while,
map.
you know, Rome was being
map is
built,
great,
the
these bones.
Colosseum, Europe,
depressing.
all these different places in the world. These people were living the same way people lived
Oh, that's
tens
not
of
gonna
thousands
go.
of years ago, right here.
Not gonna
It's
work.
crazy, and And now it
Don't
seems like
play
we're
this
so
stuff.
far removed from it, but yet as we talk about it, that romance hadn't left. And even getting a chance to chase a bull elk, there's still some amazing rural wild places
should I
out
even
there
do?
that where
Yeah.
you can kind of revisit. And that was the first thing I noticed is
I'm
all
gonna
the
pay.
the
Yeah,
Native
I'm
American
gonna explode two of
pictures
them.
you had. I hunt a lot with Native
Pick 'em
Americans, a
up.
lot with the Navajo Nation. I've become like family, or they become like family to me. I go out there every year.
Why
and
is this even?
the resources they
Why?
have? You know, I know
Think
Cam
anybody
hunts a
wants to
lot.
just
I
travel
was at Muscalero and different places, and I
Go
don't
on
know,
a
man.
journey
And even sadly, even
from the
amongst
spawn to the
the
objective?
natives, some of that culture is being
Screw
lost
you.
with them more. And so we even go out
Garbage.
every year and do a hunt with their kids. We take 15 to 20 Navajo youth hunting every year out there with the Navajo.
You're on a
game
mission
fish.
anyway.
You know, they have a lot of mentors.
Oh.
Gloria Tom, who she's just stepping down, but she was
8
the
minutes?
kind of in charge out there. And we
Oh.
would go and work with people like Jeff Cole and that whole Navajo Nation, the families, and we'd take
That's
just
very
their
interesting.
kids, the kids
You
of the Navajo
horrible
Nation
people.
hunting. And sadly enough, they're like a lot of kids in America eating Little Debbie's and playing Xbox. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
man, you got 17 million acres in your backyard. Come
Oh,
on,
screwed.
bro. You're supposed to
I
be the
know,
damn
right?
eagle.
Oh,
You
really
gotta- you
screwed.
got to fly and dip down. And when we got, you know, I'm even out here, you know, it's your room, and me too. I have all kind of Native Americans. My heroes were Native American
Yeah.
hunters, like Ishi, who taught Pope and Young how to bow
Incredible.
hunt. He's who
Oh,
got him.
really?
Yeah, I cannot even change.
Ishi out of California. I think he come back and
So disgusting.
he basically taught those guys who were doctors. He introduced them to bow hunting, and then Pope and Young, as we kill an elk.
You know, you get a
oh,
penalty
we
anyway.
have to go Pope and Young.
Wait, explain
Alright,
to
it's
people
cool.
what Pope and Young is, so people don't know what we're talking about.
Pope and
For
Young
1
is
month should be fine.
so basically Pope and Young were two guys that basically just kind of revolutionized archery as we know it a lot of times. I mean, obviously you throwing around names, you got to talk about Fred Bear, stuff like that. But prior to that, there was an Indian named Ishi out of a California tribe, and I'm not good enough at remembering exactly what tribe that was, but there's a lot of cool information that you can read. Obviously, if you ever get your hands on Saxton Pope and Arthur Young, any books, it's fascinating. Like my favorite book of all time is called The Adventurous Bowman. A friend of mine, Jeff Johnson, who's a writer, gave it to me, and I read it all the time. And even my kid, I read him that book at night, you know, and it talks about their first venture into Africa and when they went there, when they hunted grizzly, when they hunted elk the first time. And so these guys were kind of, based on what I can assume, seemed to be pretty much city slickers who had basically a patient called Ishi who taught them how to hunt. And pictures of him, you can still see him. He looks like he's dressed at a Ted Nugent concert in 1969, you know.
Guy just
Jumping off
refused to
the
die.
And so now that's what similar to Boone and Crockett. Pope and Young is an organization that's formed around, you know, celebrating certain animals that are trophy aspect. And if you get say a white-tailed deer that nets 125 inches
I don't even
Pope and
care.
Young scale, you can enter them into the Pope and Young record book. Every category of species, like elk, bear, caribou, moose, so on and so forth, has that. And so it's just kind of to celebrate a lot of the heritage of archery. And so Pope and Young, a lot of people won't know it, but that basically is the basis of what it comes from. But it starts back to, guess what, a Native American narrative. They passed it on. And so now we're kind of
Nice thing.
carrying on that same tradition. And so as a student of the game, it's like, it's so cool to talk about
There they are.
oh, look at that. Yeah,
Wow. Look at that.
that's cool. Is there any, can you find, Jamie, is that Ishi, that
That's
look Hall of
Ishi and
Fame?
Saxton.
Trying to
Pope.
play mouse, but
Issue
with
there.
maps,
Can you imagine? Look at
keeps
that.
giving me long range maps. This map would be
Yeah,
great,
I mean,
but mouse is
and,
not.
and there's so many
What
amazing
year was
stories.
this? What year was this?
Man, I don't even know. It had to have been in the, I don't know, was it 20s? Or maybe 1900. I know it was early
You know what's fascinating when you think about what we enjoy? We enjoy archery.
1912.
1912. So that guy, you know, that is like, he was alive in the 1800s.
Absolutely.
So he was doing that. Like,
What?
that's literally from the source.
And there's another thing, and it's crazy to think about this. Another thing I read and heard told, because obviously, you know, you travel around, and it's
So,
always
can
trying
I
to figure
just-
out, you know, what's
this-
fact or fiction.
This is
but
not dumb. It's
I'd listened to Casey Means.
Not
on his
allowed to
podcast
do
talking
dumb.
about our food. Supposedly, Ishi, who come in, who was actually living very primitive, but come in, and once he started hanging around and got westernized, quickly got fat because I don't know if
Looking
Blue
at these
Debbie's
people
was
from the
around
side.
then.
No.
That's the only thing I hated about the whole Casey Means, that whole podcast. I was like, man, I used to love a good oatmeal pie. Now I'm sitting there like, I don't know, that glass of milk. Man, should I even partake? But I think he gained a lot of weight, started getting a lot sicker. Just
And the
eating.
food back then was so
Was
much
way
better than the
better.
food we have now. Yeah.
Just around a lot of people, and all of a sudden he was trying to fight probably viruses and diseases and getting an abundance of a certain food he wasn't used to. And supposedly, I think he got a little heavier and less healthy just being around.
Probably a lot of grains and sugar.
Probably, I'm sure.
Yeah. He's probably eating mostly meat before that.
Probably so. Just a
Yeah.
fish out the creek and
Yeah.
backstrap out of a mule deer.
The way everybody did for thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting that if it wasn't for guys like Pope and Young and Fred Bear, I mean, how many people were evangelizing bow hunting back then? I mean, how many people were making it something that was, because as soon as rifles came along, the way everybody looked at it was, oh, rifles are better. You can shoot
Correct.
something further. It's easier to do. You hunt with rifles. But to make that choice, this decision, that there's something
Again, no damage.
connected, more spiritual about archery and bow hunting. If it wasn't for those people that were promoting it, people like Fred Bear,
Correct.
who was so articulate in the way he would describe things and the way he would describe the benefits of just archery practice, about how archery just removes your cares.
Yeah.
Like if you could just concentrate on that target and just practice archery, it cleans your mind. And I find that today.
I do too. It's almost like you go back in time every time, even though we pick up, these new Hoyt bows, you're like, oh my God, look at the technology.
A lot more accurate.
It is. It's so much more accurate. And so, it's amazing. And you're just exactly right. It is spiritual. And to think back of where it was to where it is, but then you think about the rifles and the technology we have there. But keep in mind, I'm sure, in those people who are really hunting for substance, absolutely. If we leave tomorrow and we can't go and get us a nice steak dinner, or we can't go to the grocery store and buy us some chicken or ribeye, whatever it is we decide to eat, well, absolutely. If we're like, hey, Joe, your wife and my wife is wanting us to kill a few squirrels, and we're gonna have squirrels and gravy, and my wife makes some good biscuits. It's like, why don't let's leave the Hoyts at home. Let's take a 22 and a 410. Let's just go get us a mess of squirrels.
Yeah.
And so I think probably they looked at it that way, and once that came about, and then it slowly becomes somewhat of a, I hate to even say it as a sport, because I don't look at it as a sport, it's a culture.
It's a discipline.
It's a discipline, but I think to know that we're still going back and celebrating that, and still talking about Ishii and Pope and Young and the Fred Bears and what they set forth, and even people like Chuck Adams, who was always one of my heroes. Cam and I were talking a lot about that in Texas. Just, golly, Chuck Adams was hunting these elk and always had that little green beanie, shot those double X78 arrows, and man, you wasn't nobody. It was like, all the kids and even me, I was this little chubby white kid that thought if I bought Air Jordans I could jump higher. And Michael lied to me. Man, you're a liar, Jordan. I can't jump any higher, I can't run any faster. But, Chuck, when I saw those arrows and I'd see that bow, I was like, man, I gotta have that. I want to be like Chuck. I want to be like Fred Bear. And so it's just amazing to see, and to see that we still are celebrating it. So it's really cool.
It has a very deep connection to the human mind.
Another
There's
garbage
something about
smell.
archery that I think it's because
Impossible.
as human beings evolved, we developed
How am I
the bow
supposed
and
to
arrow,
play?
They invented it, they refined it.
What?
And that was how people hunted and got their food. I think there's a
was
genetic
fine.
memory of that that's inside of our heads.
It's freaking game.
Because there's something
God.
eerily satisfying about hitting a
Impossible.
target with an arrow. It's so much different than anything. Like, I like practicing shooting rifles.
Yeah.
I've hunted with
I'm
rifles.
gonna go
I
die.
like it. I like it. It's great.
Same here.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. It's like tenfold different.
Yeah, it really is amazing. It's like every time, if I go rifle hunting, I love it. I mean, absolutely love it. Still love the whole culture of it. I grew up in Georgia where, people were on these leases. It'd be a Meade property, which was timberland, or the Georgia Power lease. There'd be 10 of us on 500 acres, or sometimes more than that. And so, everybody took a 30-06 Remington semi-automatic, a scope on it with over and under sights, and we'd meet up at Uncle Morgan's barn, me and my dad, and Scott Steiner, and my Uncle Tommy, and Uncle Jeff. And where are you going? Like, hell, I think I'm gonna go to the boat seat. I'm going to Holler One. Nobody talked about wind or nothing, and it was just a bunch of old guys high-fiving, and we would walk back there and hunt with a rifle. And as soon as you heard a rifle shot, like, that was Uncle Tommy.
Yeah.
I bet you he's got a big one, and so it was just so amazing, that part of it. So I still go back and do that. from a culture standpoint to feel just that feeling and vibe of being standing there in a pair of Kmart boots with some old Walls coveralls draped over with them old white long handles, you know, that we thought we could go to Antarctica in. In reality, it was just some cotton that as soon as it got wet, she froze to death. And just the thought of that, of being literally, in my time, 11, 12 years old, just being one of the men with a 30-06 on my shoulder, climbing up in a pine tree in a tree stand built out of leftover lumber from my dad's construction job. That was the most unsafe thing in the world. And
A lot of people got hurt falling out of those things.
and I remember we got our first bow, my dad and I. My dad had an old Browning bow, and he had a couple old recurves when I was young, and he pecked around with them. And then I remember I was 13, and I was working with him on the job site, and that's what I had my summer job. My dad was a carpenter, and so I'd go work, and man, he worked the cornbread hell out of me too, you know, just to show me how to be accountable and just what it's like to work. And he paid me $2 an hour. So he said, you need to pick you out something as a goal, figure out what you need to save your money for. You don't need to blow it on something stupid. And I said, well, I don't know.
Going the way back.
And at the time,
Right.
some of my buddies, they were saving up wanting skateboards. Well, at the time, we lived on a dirt road. So I'm like, what am I going to do with a skateboard? You know, I was like, I got to go into the city to use a skateboard. So my buddy, Jackson Bishop, we called him Boo, he lived in the city. We hunted together. He said, I'm buying me. He was working with my dad and I too, and he ended up saving his money and bought him a really cool skateboard. I remember he built it and went, he had posters of it. Well, I ended up deciding that I need to get me a bow and arrow. So I went and bought me a Martin Pro Eliminator bow from Big Buck Trading Post, paid $200 for that sucker.
Was that a compound bow?
It was a compound bow.
What year did compound bows get invented?
It would have had to been,
Need to get out
I
of
would
this
say, in the
map.
70s. I mean, the first I remember was talking about Fred Bear, the old whitetail hunter. And then you had the whitetail hunter 2 and stuff like that. And then I know Browning came on pretty soon in that. And then obviously you had Hoyt that
Did
was
they
in there.
even have sights back then?
We had like a pin sight. It was like a bracket, and it had this kind of rudimentary sight that you could scroll in and out.
But there's no rangefinders, right?
There were no rangefinders.
Is that it right there?
Look at that.
The original compound. Look at that. Up to 50% more speed and penetration.
Well, that was
that.
66. So I felt like this would have been in the 80s because I
66.
feel like
Wow, that's wild. Price so low, hunters can't afford to be without one. The way they used to market things back then is so funny.
I know I love to see those old Field and Stream and Outdoor Life magazines.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a window into a different time.
Look
you
at
know?
that. Can you imagine taking that to Utah to chase an elk in the mountains?
Oh my God, you'd have to be so close.
Cameron wouldn't even have to tote out a buck on his shoulders. He could just tote that around, probably be as heavy as a whitetail.
How heavy is that thing? Look at it, all
There's
the
no
metal.
telling. All the components and all
What
cables.
kind of feet per second are you getting out of that sucker? What is this?
Oh, look at this.
1926. Arthur Young, bow hunting.
It's a grizzly. They said it's a
Oh
grizzly.
wow.
Look at him. Holy cow. I've never seen this, Jay. Thanks for pulling this up. This is so cool.
1926.
Holy smokes. I bet they didn't have to buy a license. I bet they just went hunting.
Oh yeah, I bet they had licenses back then. I mean, when did they?
All right,
Everybody's
he hit him
camping.
somewhere.
Yeah, it shows it follows it up here. But I mean, to film this is even crazy because this is 1926. So
Right.
Wow.
You had to be so close with that shitty bow.
No doubt. And man, I tell you what, man, intriguing. Like those guys right there, their books that they wrote, if you wrote those same books now, like if you and I went on a hunt and we said, hey, let's just write an article and present it to Outdoor Life and publish it just as we saw it, which is so cool about what we do here is having a chance conversation to kind of air out anything and everything. And obviously culture has changed the world. I mean, these podcasts. But back then, you had articles. Well, they'd write these books, and it would be so, like, I would read it sometimes the same page 2 or 3 times. It'd be like, Saxon Pope talking about, or Arthur Young talking, yes, I found out, I think it's too far, 70 yards is too far to shoot at a Cape Buffalo. I put 3 arrows in him. He didn't seem hurt. I got 2 in the rump, 1 in the neck, and you're like, they didn't edit this out. It's almost like
right.
This
it's
boy.
almost like you hunting squirrel. Like, man, I'll tell you what, I don't like them pellets. It's just not those pellets in that air rifle are nice. They're just not knocking squirrels down good enough. Like, oh, you wasn't supposed to put that.
Forse se ne
you know,
Mexico
that
no
out.
automated.
They would just Like, okay, let's put this in a book and let's sell it.
Well, they were pioneers.
They were
essentially.
learning.
They were learning how to do
Oh.
it.
But you imagine
go.
how you get crucified sometimes for the people who don't understand hunting, even ethically hunting and making a
Yeah.
good ethical shot, whether it's a bow or an arrow or a rifle. And back then they were like, all right, let's go try to hunt some African lions. I don't know what it's going to take to kill them, but
Right.
we'll see.
They were just experimenting.
Experiment. And they took a boat over. Think about, I mean, I
long did
want to
that
go to,
take?
I've been to Africa quite a few times.
How long does it take to get to Africa in a boat?
It was taking them months to get over there, and they would take a whole ship. And I think I forget. I don't want to say it because it could be inaccurate historically, but I want to say they was taking 40, 50 bows, these recurves, and like just tubs and tubs of arrows. I mean, just
Because they were just launching them.
it's like they had more freaking arrows than P. Diddy had baby oil. I mean, it's almost like it's like, man, how many arrows can you fit on this boat? Like, well, we got shit
Well,
loaded
they
up.
probably knew they weren't going to get any over there, and they're probably
yeah.
making them themselves.
Yeah, and I
right?
think it documents that. It talks about like, look, if our bows tear up, or in this experimental process, we might need a little stronger bow. So, you know, I mean, sometimes, very rarely I do this. I'll go to pretty desolate places. I'll take one bow. Very rarely I take two bows. I used to think it'd be beneficial, but then I started realizing, man, these things are so dependable. I don't need it. Maybe I take a bow press or an extra cable or an extra string or setup, but I mean, they just had to take everything, and they really didn't know.
That's such a commitment to adventure. Get on
Unbelievable.
a boat with a bunch of bows and a tub of arrows.
I mean, how do you tell your wife that too? Because they were married.
Exactly.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine now that, you know, Joe and I planned a hunt trip here, and you go home and say, hey man, just me and Waddell was talking, and me, him, and Cam were thinking about running to hunt hogs. Well, how long are you gonna be gone? You know, it's Christmas time. It's like, well, 2 days.
What?
You know, we're just gonna drive down or fly over here, do that. Can you imagine? Like, hey baby, I think I'm going to Africa, and we're gonna try to hunt some lion. We don't know what's
Back
gonna
in
happen.
about 6, 7 months.
Yeah, I'll be back next year. I mean, it's like,
I'm gonna go hunt lions with a pointy stick.
exactly. I should be back. I don't
Not
think
sure what it takes to kill one.
no internet,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
I mean, nothing.
How do you
couldn't
even, what do you-
research?
How are you learning form and technique? How,
Yeah.
Who you learn? You just have to practice, and then eventually figure out. Well, I held my elbow this way. It seemed to be better than this way.
Yeah.
I'll just
We'll just wing
tweak it.
And even the civil unrest. Imagine this. I mean, you know, I hear people talk about hunting and the dangers of potential rogue wildlife, but I've never been that, you know, grew up real country, so I never had any fear of any animals. You know, matter of fact, if I was bear hunting and I thought, you know, somebody said, hey man, bears love pork chops. You walk through Alaska with a pork chop around your neck, might get a better chance to get a shot. I'd be like, well, hell, you reckon they'll come? Let's try it. You know, I want a shot at one. But think of the civil unrest. I've always been I went to Zimbabwe one time, me and Nick Munt and several of my buddies, we went over there to Zimbabwe, and it just happened to be when Mugabe was rerunning. And so he had a little
What?
just when we think
You're
people
just gonna
listen to this,
leave?
that, you know, politics in America are crazy. Well, guess what? Somebody was running against Mugabe, so
What?
did they debate it on a podcast or you talk about it on CNN? No, Mugabe just went and killed the guy he was running against. Like, okay, I win, you know, so end the story. And so the internet was shut down. And so I remember being over there like, man, I'm kind of scared, not of an elephant or a lion. I'm like, what is this? I don't have a phone. I don't have internet. I have no way to talk to my family. I don't have any, and my money got stolen. I was the idiot who went over there like with my backpack with cash and like, you know, a bank envelope, everything that you read. That, like, okay, I'm an idiot. So I go to take some money to we were talking about going fishing on the Zambezi River, and so you know, I was like, I'm gonna get a little money. I'm gonna tip this guy if I go fishing. Like, dude, where's my money? And it was all gone. So I don't know if it was between when I landed in South Africa somewhere in my room. I don't know where, but all of my money, and I think I had about $7,000 cash, which for me, that was a lot of money. Like, I mean, I was devastated. Not only I lose the money, it's like I didn't have money to lose like that. But now I'm like, what am I going to do? And so they take me over to Botswana, and I get some pulas from an ATM because it's a little more westernized. But I remember calling home, and it's like, man, we ain't in Kansas no more. This ain't a whitetail hunt. And in my mind, I was so singled in on the adventure and thinking of Saxton, Pope and Young, and all these guys.
Perkins.
And I forget, like, wait a minute, there's people dying and starving over here, and I'm just over here trying to maybe find a Cape buffalo or a Gims buck or something, and that's where I learn a lot in my young travel of just what's out there in the
Do you ever
world.
watch Pedro Ampuro's videos?
No.
Jamie, I'll send it to you. He's fascinating, and he travels everywhere to bow hunt. Everywhere. All over the
I can
world.
already tell I'd love that.
Oh, you'd love it. He's great too. His hunting adventures are really interesting, but he goes all over.
I love that.
He goes to like Tajikistan and play.
Holy cow. Look at that. And you can tell, just
He's super dedicated bow hunter, and travels to Greenland. He was in Greenland with Remy. They were hunting together, and just his stuff. Pedro's videos are really well done, and he's such a likable guy that it's a good introduction to people that don't even understand why anybody would be interested in bow hunting, because you realize like this guy he's as much fascinated by the adventure of it all as he is even the hunting aspect of it. Like he really enjoys being in these very different cultures and very different parts of the world. Like he hunted elk in Mongolia.
wow.
Mongolia has a large elk population.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's really funny because everybody who goes there to hunt hunts with a rifle, and so all the guides who speak Mongolian,
Right.
Like they're like, what the fuck is this guy doing with his bow? This is stupid. Like,
What
go
are you
shoot
doing,
it.
Pedro?
He's like,
Yeah.
I can't shoot it. It's 98 yards away. We have to get closer. It's like, just shoot it.
Yeah.
Just shoot it. Shoot it. Kill it. Let's get out of here. We've been here for fucking 3 days. Like they're tired of it, but. This dude's got a really fucking great channel and a ton of videos. I mean, he's been doing this making these videos for like 10, 15 years.
I'm definitely going to subscribe to that. And
I
you
don't
got,
even see the buffalo. Where's the buffalo?
is he
Oh, it's a
bedded?
mouflon. Oh, that's
Oh,
a
mouflon sheep.
Oh, you went to a different video. Oh, okay. Go to the Mongolia elk hunt because it's so fascinating. They stayed in a yurt. So they stayed in one of those felt tents like Genghis Khan used to live in, and they traveled in the woods, and it looks like you're in Wyoming. It looks like you're in Idaho.
Them yurks, I always wonder if that's what Missy Elliott was rapping about. Yurk premonition around here.
I don't think so. I don't think she has any knowledge
that's
of
what
yurts.
it said.
Yeah. But if you scroll further ahead, you can see some of the footage. This is Ibex in Mongolia.
Dude,
But
tough hunt too, man.
Google, it's not that. Search elk in Mongolia. He's got tons and tons. There it is right there. See world record
Tajikistan.
elks right there.
Yeah.
Second row, that one. Bam. Yeah, that's in Mongolia.
See, that's, to me, so
I mean,
fascinating.
isn't that crazy? Like, look at that. That looks like you could be in Utah.
Absolutely.
And they just totally didn't understand why he was using. A bow because his dad was there. His dad hunted with a rifle, and he was successful. And he's there close.
God, and those look like just your basic Rocky Mountain species.
I don't even know how they got there. I don't know if they were always there. I don't know if they were introduced. I really don't know.
There's a yurt, yep.
Yeah, and that's what they're staying in. Really,
I did
interesting.
not even know that there were elk in Mongolia.
Yeah, I didn't either until I saw this video.
Nor would I have even known you could hunt there. And I think that's what people don't realize living in America.
Yeah.
We can hunt. I mean, go do that in China. Get hungry in China and decide you want to go get you a mess of rabbit and squirrel. Well, they might not be none, and you can't legally hunt.
You can't legally hunt in China?
Not in China, not at all. There's several states. You can't even bow hunt in UK.
I know, isn't that crazy?
I mean, I don't know if that goes back to Robin Longstride, or I think some of it does, a lot of the folklore, because that was a poaching tool. You hunted the king's property, and you could do it. You could poach with a bow and arrow.
Well, that's what people don't understand. The Robin Hood was not about stealing money. It was about using the king's land to hunt
Correct.
animals.
Correct.
Because people were starving, and the king had all these animals, and you weren't allowed to hunt them.
You couldn't.
So Robin Hood was like, "This is bullshit."
Like, yeah, I'll take
go
this
get some
bow and
deer.
arrow. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go eat. There's stag out here. Man.
Yeah.
And so I'm always, the more I travel, like seeing this that Pedro's done. I hadn't done that extensive of traveling, and I've never. If it ends with a stand, I just stay out of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and these extra Z's in the
yeah, man. That's
long
like
word.
I try to be.
Yeah, well, Pedro goes everywhere. I can't recommend his show enough. It's so good. And I watch him
I'm
all
gonna
the
check
time.
that out.
Late night when I want to chill, when I'm at home, I come home from the comedy club, I'll throw on some of his videos.
Check out
Just
Pedro.
Chill out.
I wonder
watch
just-
those.
Have you ever heard of this?
What is that?
I was looking at the initial books coming out of hunting trips to Africa, and
Dingo neck?
multiple people said they saw this. One guy said he even shot one.
In Africa, they saw it.
Yeah.
How
starting
long
back
ago
in
was this?
1907, I think.
What the fuck? Do they have a
Yeah.
photo of it?
It's just, it obviously might be a real thing, but the descriptions of it were backed up by multiple people.
Huh. A carnivore that
Oh.
chose to hunt or devour nearly whatever it wants, save for elephants.
Holy cow!
It had tusks.
Dog-headed, beast fish.
What?
I don't even
Yeah,
think Jim
leopard
Shockey's
print.
hunted one of them.
Where did you find this, Jamie?
Yeah, literally, I'm looking at all these history books about like different expeditions, and this was one from 1908. They went to look for some certain things. They encountered this in Lake Victoria.
Huh.
I mean, it's probably not real. But
Look at this,
maybe
but it seems like it is. Like, I want to believe. He encountered by Lake Victoria when asked Bronson's own hunting party provided nearly identical descriptions of the creature. The title is reference to the author having been given special permission to hunt the closed territory of Loida, Maasai, Kisi, and Sotik. Wow, what the hell was that?
Looking it up. Very strange.
It looks different in a bunch of the drawings, though.
Sure. I mean, they don't.
Right. But like, remember when we were showing those ancient pictures of what a whale looked like to people? They'd never seen a whale before, and they had like wings, a lion's head.
That's what's fascinating on all that. Those paintings
could be.
and engravings. It
Yeah.
kind of, some of it you can see like, okay, we still have some of those animals that look that way, and then some kind of looks kind of mystical.
Well, you ever seen the ones like cave paintings where it's like a stegosaurus?
Yeah.
Like, how did you know what that looked like? What do you
Somebody
know-
had. Exactly. They didn't Google it.
Right. Were they or you laying around? I mean, I
Yeah.
wonder.
I'm so intrigued by that. I think I'm more intrigued with it hunting and traveling and being in these places. Like we went down. I love to turkey hunt. I love to turkey hunt. Matter of fact, I'm going to do everything in my power. And anybody that listens that's ever knew my name knows. Everybody's like, dude, you got to get Cam and Rogan to go turkey hunting. You
I
gotta
went
go."
turkey hunting once.
Did you really?
I went with Ranella. He took
Did
me.
you really?
Yeah.
Ranella, dude.
It was fun.
He's fun. I love turkey hunting. I just love it, and that's how I kind of broke into the industry.
It's
I guess.
definitely a superior turkey to eat.
Whew, they are.
They're delicious.
They are delicious to eat. And but anyway, with that said, we were down right out of the Yucatan Peninsula hunting ocellated turkeys, which is a different species. You can hunt all these turkeys and get different slams. They call
Yeah,
them.
I think Ranella's got the slam.
Yeah, Ranella's done it.
He's
And
a
so I
big
went
turkey.
down there with actually Troy Link of Jack Link's Jerky, and he's a big hunter. So we all went down there, kind of for the adventure and to say, yeah, we hunted the jungles. And dude, amazing. You know, you got all that Mayan civilization and all this stuff that I saw, even Graham Hancock. But what people don't realize, we're out in the middle of this jungle, and I'm walking around, and the guy I'm with, he don't know English. And I'm like, and Cohen Stone, our producer, he's standing there, and I was like, dude, this is one of those pyramids. Like we're walking up, and I'm trying to figure out if I can hen call, because nobody had ever figured out if you can hen call to these ocellated turkeys. I get to looking around, and so finally I'm tapping this guide on the shoulder, and I'm like, bro, you know, Mayan? He said, oh, see. And I'm like, there's so many of those structures out there.
Yeah.
And we're out there hunting turkeys. They don't think nothing about it. It's kind of like us walking around out in the middle of the woods in Georgia and finding an old whale. You know, we're intrigued. They're like, oh yeah, they're everywhere. So I only knew about the ones that was on the postcards, you know,
Right.
that you go and
Chichen Itza.
yeah, when you're out there having a Corona on the beach and somebody trying to sell you an engraving to your wife in some, you know, ring.
Yeah.
or something. I'm like, oh my God, dude. And like, I wanted so bad for a turkey to respond and to put my back against that. And so I did a little video and I was like, man, this is insane. But when would I have had a chance to see that had I not been a hunter?
Yeah.
So that gets you down the rabbit hole of like, well, what was this? And what is that calendar? And I wonder what Graham Hancock is. So when I'm seeing some of this, I'm like, dude, I was in that area. I didn't go to see that particular piece where he's talking to this authority, but I did go, 30 miles south of there or 100 miles, and I had a chance to work a turkey around one that's not even been excavated. And it was just blew my mind.
They find so many of those too. The jungle just overrun all that civilization, just overcame it, and they find them with, you know what LiDAR is?
I heard, yes, I saw, well, I didn't know about it until I watched that on the Netflix show with Graham, and he
crazy.
showing how they're flying over in those rings and stuff.
See if you can find that pyramid that they just unearthed in Guatemala. They just unearthed some
Dead.
huge pyramid in Guatemala.
And that's, we were
I think
south.
it was Guatemala.
We were right there, kind of right on the southern tip of Mexico, just as you go into Guatemala. And I was just intrigued. We were in the jungle and staying in these little huts, and I mean these little tents, like almost a swimming pool. I was blown away. And the whole time I was like, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to be the hunter, to go see this, to experience this. And to, I don't know, it's just, I'm overwhelmed. I've never got bored with it. The more I do it, the more humble it becomes. As soon as you start thinking, like, man, I got a bunch of elk with my bow and arrow. I got this figured out. I'm about to run a rake to them. I know where they're going to be. And then you go out there and they just kick your butt.
Yeah, there's no real figuring it out. I mean, you can certainly get to your level or a level of Cam Haines or Remy Martin. You become very proficient. You understand what to do. And here it is. Find lost city in Mexico jungle by accident.
Holy cow.
Yeah, this is what it was. It wasn't Guatemala. So archaeologists found pyramids, sports fields, causeways, and connecting districts, amphitheaters in the southern central state of Campeche.
Campeche, yeah.
Campeche. They uncovered the hidden complex, which they have called Valeriana, using LiDAR, a type of laser survey that maps structures buried under vegetation.
Harvesting.
They believed it is second in density only to Calakmul, thought to be the largest Maya site in ancient Latin America. The team discovered 3 sites total in a survey the size of Scotland's capital, Edinburgh, by accident when one of the archaeologists browsed data on the internet. That's so crazy. They found it by accident.
See, that's amazing. And I got the same vibe when I was down there, because we weren't too far out of Campeche when we was turkey hunting. And so as we're going through there, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of acres. I'm not even sure how it's set up. I don't know if it's, governmentally owned, in this case Mexico, or if it's village. But when I saw that, even though we videoed it, I asked, later I come back, and the main outfitter, he's very fluid in English. He said, yeah, we don't, there's all kinds of stuff out there. We don't talk about it a lot because this is our hunting ground. It's almost like the buffalo drop
Right,
story.
they don't
of mine.
want people,
They don't,
archaeologists
they really
getting in
don't want
there.
Graham Hancock down there with a team of filmmakers from California. Like, they don't want it. And
I
so
see their point, but I
Yeah.
don't.
I absolutely.
Yeah.
And they kind of.
14
But I
miles.
think that's what's fascinating
Very
about
within.
all that we're able to talk about and share now culturally.
Yeah.
Is we realize if you grow up hunting and fishing, well, I really assumed everybody did. I didn't think there was somebody that hadn't eaten squirrel.
Right.
I did a walk.
I didn't eat squirrel until I was 45 years old.
That's what I'm saying. And I grew up to where, like, laying and eating with my papa, like, one day, damn it, I'm gonna buy me some ribeyes. It's like you eat enough squirrel and rabbit, and it's great, but
Yeah.
it's almost like, man, I'm gonna get that big family pack of chicken.
Right.
And we ate plenty of that, but it was always a fallback to where you understood the good Lord's renewable resources and
Yeah.
how to hunt them. So taking an animal for table fare wasn't anything at all to even cheer about, other than, almost in the blessing of blessing your food, like, thank you, Lord, for giving us this opportunity to have a place to hunt. So it would be a chance to go put a fish basket out. I remember my papa would taught me so many things. He made corn liquor and just country as a damn chicken coop.
Oh, wow.
And I look back, he passed away when I was 12. Both of my granddads did. And my dad, Edwin Waddell, same way. I mean, they taught me so much, but I just assumed this is what every man was. And I figured this is what
Right.
everybody knew.
'Cause that's how you grew up.
Yeah, and I remember I started working in the hunting industry when I was young. I remember, I tell this story, I just remember, like, going to a nice restaurant and people ordering appetizers. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like,
What does that mean?
yeah, it's like, bring us some ceviche and some calamari, and you guys like cheese sticks? Oh, look, I know they're unhealthy. Anybody like cheese sticks? Like, I like cheese sticks. And like, you know, like, and then all of a sudden, we're sitting there chatting like we are, and everybody's having a cocktail. And I'm like, man, I'm so happy. This is the funnest. I'm loving this. And I'm literally going back and at the end of the night calling my dad, like, man, you can't believe it. Everybody's eating before you eat. Like we getting shrimp cocktail and you know, and I'm over there, and it sounds crazy and almost like it's exaggerated, but I was so overwhelmed. I was so intrigued with the city and just people. I would be the guy talking to everybody, you know, from the you know, street people, like, what's
Old
up?
school.
You know, like, you know, they're,
I'm for killing
you know, like, man, what's it like out here? You know, like, man, you ever ate a pigeon? Man, there's a lot of these pigeons. Go get you a couple ketchup packets from McDonald's and get you a rock. It's, hell, people should hit. And so it was almost like the exact opposite from some of now my city friends who have gotten just enthralled with hunting.
Yeah.
They introduced me to so much of the city culture that, you know, I still get excited. Everybody don't think I do, but I still love to get excited to go. I had a chance. Joe Montana is somebody who's got a show on Outdoor Channel, so he has this big cigar dinner every night in Burbank.
Oh, another.
It's all the Fuentes, you know, and all these different, you know, movie stars and stuff. And so he's like, man, why don't you get a table? Come out and join us. I'm like, yes. So I took my wife. We're all country. I was so excited just to get dressed up, and everybody think I wouldn't like it, but I was like, man, this is cool. I'm out there having me a cigar. There's the guy from Rambo. I forget his name, but it's in Karate Kid.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, I'm meeting some of these people, and I'm thinking it's amazing how culturally, being so country, and how now I'm talking to some of these guys like, man, dude, you're the hunting guy. Can you, man, why don't you take me hunting? I'm intrigued with that.
Yeah.
And so now having a chance, I know you had like Jim Brewer on, which what a cool cat.
I love Jim.
He is so fun. Man, I couldn't hardly hunt with him or Theo for just constantly laughing. I mean, I like to cut up and have a good time.
The first time I went hunting, I went with Ranella took me and Brian Callen, and it's the same deal.
Yeah.
Brian Callen's fucking hilarious. And we were just crying, laughing in Montana, freezing our dicks off, having a good time. My experience was the opposite. Always lived in cities, always, you know, and then the first time I went hunting was with Ranella. I had been camping before when I was a kid, but I had no real exposure to nature.
Right.
And I remember just after that week doing it, I was like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. Like, this
hit you.
100%. I remember cooking the back straps over the fire. It was me and Ranella and Callen and the crew, and we were just like sprinkling some seasoned salt over these back straps and cooking them over the fire, and we're eating them with our hands, and I was like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. This is like one of the greatest moments I've ever had in my life, one of the greatest experiences. I felt so tuned into it. I was like, this is something I've been missing. Like, this is, and it's a whole new world. I explained it. I was like, it's like you're in a different dimension. The first time I shot a deer was on that show. So I had never hunted an animal before. I'd only been fishing. And the first time I'm looking at that deer through the crosshairs of that rifle, and I'm just calming myself to squeeze the shot. And I squeeze off the shot, and the deer drops like a stone.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
Oh my God.
this is what I'm doing forever. Yeah, and then once I started eating it, I was like, oh, this is my thing. Oh my God, I'm obsessed. I was obsessed. Obsessed. And then obsessed with what
This guy got direct.
just the experience of being in the woods is so different than anything. The way people think of hunting, unfortunately, we've been poisoned by movies where the hunters are the bad guys. They're always douchebags. They're always like poaching animals and harassing people. Hunters in movies, it's a trope. They've always been like cruel, evil people. Like there's Bambi.
The Walt Disney movies are the worst.
They ruin people.
This is
they ruin this
insane.
idea.
7
People
kids
who
with a
buy
mouse
burgers from
and 7.
McDonald's. Will look down on someone who hunts an animal in the woods, and it's
correct.
It just our brains have been distorted. Our perceptions have been distorted by media, and I realized that being in the woods hunting, I was like, first of all, this is very difficult to do. Mule deer hunting in Montana in October. Freezing cold in the Missouri breaks, fascinating. Just the environment is so unforgiving and doesn't give a fuck about you.
No.
The quiet and the isolation out
Yep.
there, and a weird kind of loneliness. Not loneliness, but a realization of where your place really is in the natural world. You're not special.
No.
You're not. There's nothing significant about you.
Grain of salt.
Yeah, you're just one of many living things trying to get along out here, trying to get by. And you have an advantage, obviously, because you have a rifle and you have binoculars and all that other good stuff. But the reality of it is, it's very, very difficult to achieve success, especially if you don't know what you're doing. I was very lucky to have a guy like Ranella show me
Yeah.
around. But once you do it once, you're like, oh, God, like, this is incredible. Like, and then to eat that animal, completely different experience than any other meal I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, it's such a peace that comes with it, and I try to explain that, but there's no way to explain it until you experience it.
Right.
And, you know, I was even trying to explain it to Theo. I don't know if I got that across. We laughed. Theo
is a unique dude.
Man, he's one of the most. I've met quite a few people, not as many as you, but
Oh,
Theo
my
by far is one of the coolest, unique people I've met. And I remember we get out and we're going to turkey hunt, you know, and I knew, first of all, I think I
Oh,
ruined
nice.
his whole
Done.
excitement of it when I said, all right, man, I'll wake y'all up. We got about 4:35, you know. He said, what'd you say, Waddell? I said, oh, man, I didn't sign up for this. You know, I didn't say this in the brochure. And I was like, and so Caleb Presley, who Barstool Sports, he was there. And I was a big fan of those guys. So I was trying to make sure I gave them the best experience I could, you know, because you know, just like Ranella did with you, I knew the magnitude of, okay, these guys, I hope they want to do it again. But we go out there, and Theo had not been around a gun a lot, and so I figured it'd be easy. I had a 20 gauge. I can't remember if it was a 20 or a 12 gauge. I had a couple, but I put red dot, bushing our red dot scopes on there to make it really easy. Not have them shoot the bead. Just look through this optic and see the red dot, put it on the turkey's head, pull the trigger. So Theo's looking through that thing. So you gonna shoot now? I said, no, Theo. I mean, it's not even daylight good. He's got sunglasses on. And he says, he's looking through this, Joe. He's looking through this shotgun. He said, oh, man. He said, I see that red dot. He said, when I pull the trigger, it turned green. And I said, Theo. And so there's clips of it. And I literally, he said, and then he looked at me and said, who's on the other team? There he is. That's it.
Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Keep putting off the trigger.
Okay.
All right, but see what I'm saying? You can see, you see the red dot. The red dot will go on his head. If you can get him out.
All right. And who's the other team?
Buddy, I take the gun. I just look. I say I take it.
Bro, he lives in another dimension. Theo lives in a neighboring dimension, and he just comes and visits us.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
Theo and I went to the UFC 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
Last weekend? 2 weekends ago? We were
fuck
in
you.
Vegas, and then after the fights, we went to dinner. And I swear to God,
I still
dinner
wrecked
was
your
an
ass.
hour and a half of me and Theo crying, laughing, just I mean, tears. I'm wiping my eyes. I can't breathe. I go, dude, this should have been a podcast. We should have filmed this.
Oh,
'Cause
God. I can only imagine.
We were crying. We were just He was saying the most ridiculous shit, and I was laughing so hard. It was so much fun. He's so fun.
He's so fun. I had so much fun with that guy, man. And he said so much that I couldn't repeat. That was so funny. And then they said so much that I could, but I hadn't met anything quite like him. And, he's so
a
unique.
one of
Yeah.
a kind. He's a one of
Such
a
a
kind.
big heart too, man.
Oh, he's a
Yeah.
sweetheart. Such a nice guy. He's
Yeah.
such a kind person, and just a very unique talent.
And that's the thing too, you know. Caleb, on the other hand, he ended up did getting the turkey for Caleb, and he kind of took to it pretty quick. Theo liked it, but I think his attention, if it is attention deficit, he definitely had it.
He's got that.
And he was kind of cool, and anyway, and I realized Theo had more fun just kind of walking around, checking out the cows.
Man,
and
it's
Yeah.
just,
okay.
I mean, dude, that would be a whole. You could do a special of Theo just walking around. Maybe after a mushroom or something, just let him walk around and just describe what he's seeing. I mean, our
That
producer
would
come
be
back
it.
and I saw him way a ways. I was
He's
tired, man.
kinda-
I've been hunting a lot. He said, man, we're gonna go take an adventure, walk around the ranch, you know, farm. It was down in South Florida. And I come back, our producer was laughing. He said, man, I can't even tell you all I heard and what Theo was saying. He said, I've never laughed so hard. And I said, I can only imagine. I can only
Not
imagine.
bad.
But yeah, man, I don't know. It's just like that part. I think that's the most beautiful thing for
One
me,
more.
coming from where I come from, and even seeing all the different people from all these cultures, and there's so much, and I completely understood this too. There's so little that separate us all from the most rural country guy
Oh, nice,
to
Mom.
the most urban city guy, from no
Yes.
matter what race, ethnicity. It's
Nice.
amazing how there's so much entertainment and things if you just open your mind,
Yeah.
Oh,
not
it's
pretend to know
close.
it all, to want to learn, because there's so much you can teach me, so much I can teach you, and it's just amazing, and it's definitely given me a whole lot better perspective. And I don't know, that's been probably the coolest part of what I've had a chance to go on an adventure and a journey, is to be able to meet somebody like Brewer, who's like, he didn't really, was not intrigued with hunting. It was more the conspiracy of what was going down, and like, dude, I went to go get some chicken breast and some chicken wings to watch football. You couldn't find any. The government, Fauci, is making me learn.
Don't take it away.
What else? Teach me how to kill a turkey. On the other hand, first morning out, Jim kills one. And so, you've hunted enough, you and Cam, where, you get an elk, and it is a reverence. It's not like everybody reacts different. So, but if you paid a good arrow, kind of the Ted Nugent, the spirit of the arrow, the spirit of the wild, and that arrow goes in there, and you've worked for it, you practice, and when it's a good ethical shot, and you know that you got and essentially put the tag on that bull, it is almost like spike. Some people, it's almost like spiking the football when you get a touchdown.
Yeah.
So I was so excited that Jim Brewer had just got a turkey. That me and I had Ira Dean, who used to be in that country group Trick Pony, who is just a trip in itself. He's good friends with Jim, and they live somewhere close down there in Naples, Florida. And me and Ira are just grabbing him, look like you wrestling jujitsu. I got him in the head, like, you got him, Jim, and we're like, punching, like, you smoked him, you dude, right in the head. We high-fiving, and Jim's just over like
Overwhelmed.
the woman in the shower on Psycho. Like, what did I just do? I just killed something. and all of a sudden, I forgot. This is a guy in the movies. This is a comedian that I grew up as a kid watching on Saturday Night Live. He's never been there.
Right.
And so, and then we slowed down, and it wasn't even hardly any time after that. Jim's just sitting there. He takes the turkey and he's holding it like a little puppy dog, and he's holding it. And Ira, my buddy, gets it. He grabs his beak and says, "Hello, Jim," and he's. And I think even Jim talks about it, but I just sit back and I'm like, man, how cool is this?
Yeah.
And then the same token, Jim's like, hey man, if you ever down here want to come to one of my comedy shows, and for my wife and friend to go do that, or to see something I've never seen,
Yeah.
or to go home and still tell my dad, who's 71, like, you're not gonna believe what I saw in Austin. You're not gonna believe what happened in,
Yeah.
wherever, Las Vegas. We were at the SHOT Show. I don't know.
That's the beauty of travel, right? Like, the more environments you could go into, the more completely different cultures you could explore.
How is he still alive, dude?
Just a wider sense of human.
This thing has no armor.
And you realize
Zero.
we have more in common than we do
Come on.
opposed to each other. We have much more that we share than we don't.
Correct.
And what really is just like, what environment did you grow up in? You grew up in the country. I grew up in the city.
Yeah.
That's
But
circus.
once you find common ground, and once you experienced it, like experiencing nature for the first time for people that are in the city, it's so overwhelming for them. It's so interesting to watch them just walk around the woods and just be confused and not knowing how to navigate, not knowing where they are, and being exhausted, not knowing how much energy it takes going up hills.
How are we gonna get back?
Yeah.
Where are we at? Yeah.
We're 8 miles deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to walk 8 miles back.
Yeah.
When is that going to get us back? Well, probably at 11 p.m.
Yeah, it's gonna be late. Yeah.
What? 11 p.m.? Yeah, we have headlights. You put on your headlamps. Like, what? We're going to walk in the dark. Are there animals out here? There's a lot of animals out here, and they know where you are before you know where they
100%.
are. Yeah.
It is so intriguing, and think about it is a completely different world. And for me, it was so cool. I've over the years working for different. I call it more non-endemic. Like, you obviously think of Hoyt, you think of Realtree, you think of these different companies that are around the hunting culture. But I remember one year I had a chance to work with Hormel Denny Moore Stew. Hormel had Denny Moore beef stew, and so they did this sweepstakes, and it's like, win a turkey hunt with Michael Waddell. And so we did it, and they run 30-second ads. That was when everything, bunch of 30-second ads. And so the guy wins it, him and his son, and they get there, and I realized they'd never hunted, and it was my first time to experience guiding somebody that knew nothing. I mean, I guided a lot of rookies, but I'm talking about when I say had no clue of nature.
Never shot a gun.
Never
been
shot
in
a
the wild.
gun. I mean, immediately, had the big Rambo knife tied on his side of his thing. It's like, okay.
No, match over.
And so I remember we walking, and I realized
This had to
that,
be fun.
okay, this would be fun for me because from the basics of everything, just the mountain, the streams to the tracks. And so we walking along, and me and his son and him
What
are
is
talking.
this?
And I said, look here, this is a coyote track right here. Look at this, it's cool. You can see it
He's
in
shooting.
the Sendero, a perfect coyote track. Oh man, that's cool. I'd like, and everything he would relate to would be to a cartoon, like the coyote on Bugs Bunny Rodeo Show. I said, yeah, like Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner, coyote, but this is a real coyote. And I said, oh, this is cool. Check this out. This is a
that's
bobcat
bad.
track. Oh man,
That's
I
not
say, look,
good.
here's a turkey track, but this is a hen track. This track is different. I'm explaining to him the different things.
Freaking plane.
I mean, we saw everything that day from hog, javelina tracks. So finally we're walking, and he's just so cool with these tracks, like taking pictures. He said, hey man, any Cheetos around here? And I said, what? And he said, no,
At least I looked at it.
Cheetos? I said, are you talking about like Cheetos, like
Snacks?
snacks? He said, oh yeah, I mean, any of those animals? And I
Come
said,
here,
what?
bro.
What?
here.
I swear. I said,
Animals.
that just shows the disconnect. Cheetos, Chester the cheetah, which I guess is from a true animal,
Rambo.
a cheetah. But Chester Cheeto, he was like, is any of those tracks? If you see one of those tracks, show me what a Chester Cheeto track is like. We don't have cheetahs, but there is no Chester the cheetah. But then it hit me, it's like you was talking about the movies. Well, Bambi is so real to them. The Fox and the Hound, I mean, it's so real.
Right.
It's like, somehow, they think that you go to Antarctica or North Pole and these polar bears are sitting having a soda and high-fiving and talking about
Eating
Christmas.
Klondike bars.
Yeah, eat Klondike bars. Like, what's up, Waddell?
Yeah.
Come over here, man.
Right.
Have a Coke with us. It's like, no, that's not. These animals will smell you and they come hunt you. It's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, a seal that we got to wait days for him to come out of the hole or hunt them down, or look, there's a dude that's been eating a lot of fried chicken and collard greens and cornbread. I bet that sucker, I bet he can't run fast. Let's go eat him. And so
Yeah,
it's
that'd
just
be
a
awesome.
disconnect of not knowing and thinking that everything is almost like going to the zoo. And then when it becomes hard, you're 2 or 3 days in, and you're not had an opportunity, it's like, dude, what's going on? Like, we're hunting. I mean, I've even had them like, dude, I thought you were good. I mean, well, I'm trying. I'm trying. It's just this animal, it does not want to get on your plate.
It's not an easy thing to do.
No.
And that's also the problem with hunting shows. This
Yeah.
is a hunting show. If it's a half-an-hour show, it's 22 minutes of actual footage, and so you're boiling down a 10-day
Yep.
22 minutes. And the reality is, that gives a distorted perception to people who don't like they just go there, they put the animal in the crosshair. That's not fair. Like, you hear that all the time. That's not fair. Like, survival's not fair. You think it's fair that the lion gets to kill the gazelle? It's not fair.
No.
Of course it's not fair. There's nothing fair in nature. Why are elephants big? Why are mice small? There's nothing fair.
No.
It's not. This fair doesn't factor in. This is what you're trying to do. You're trying to survive. Obviously, you can go to the store, but out here, there's no fucking store.
No.
So out here, if you want to survive, if you want to,
Yes.
we lived here forever. This is the only environment you're ever going to be here.
This is
You
so
can't
much fun.
stop eating.
Correct.
This is the only one way. You've
So
got
who's
to
gonna
figure out
nuke
the
it?
wind.
Oh,
You
our
gotta
guy?
figure out where
Okay.
they are. You got to pattern them. You got to
That's
figure out how
that's
to
a nice
sneak
one.
up on them. You got to figure out how to execute a shot without getting
Yeah.
high fever. You got to do all this.
Destroy
This is the only way.
It's so deep. You're right. And it is difficult.
You just
It is
can't
difficult.
boil it down to 10. Like, Pedro does a really good job of showing
fuck
like,
that.
how difficult it is
That's
on
right.
these crazy adventure hunts he does. But even still, it's an hour and a half. Like, the reality is, it's 10 fucking days, man. 10 days.
That's
of
right.
10 to 12 miles a day, sweating your ass off, coming back exhausted, your feet hurt, your back's killing you, and you sleep
Yeah.
so hard. You sleep like a dead man. And then that alarm clock goes off at 4:30 in
Yeah.
the morning. Like, oh, you get some
I know.
coffee in you with a jet boil.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
You freeze it, and you're trying to warm your hands up, and then you're off again.
Yep.
But-
It still almost feels like, I always talk about hunting and opening day. It's kind of like Christmas. It's like, when you finally do get to that September, and I just use elk hunting as an example because I know you love elk hunting. It's almost like you are tired. You've been grinding. You've had doing your daily gigs of whatever you're doing, the responsibilities of everything in your life. Finally, I'm in elk camp, and you're already tired. And that first morning, you maybe don't sleep good because you're anxious and excited, and then all of a sudden you finally fall into deep sleep, and all of a sudden, you're like. But then all of a sudden, it's kind of like as a kid when you're waiting on Santa Claus. It's like, man, I'm not sleeping. I'm listening for him. I left milk and cookie for him, and then, but then you fell asleep deep, and all of a sudden, you wake up and like, oh look, Santa Claus. So you jump up, and you're still tired. And so hunting to me is still that. But
that's amazing. It's still that after all these years.
I still get excited.
So that's the same with Cam. I mean, he's been hunting his whole life. He still loves it more than anything. I plan on it so hardcore that like when Netflix gave me a comedy special,
I'm gonna go some videos.
August, I was like, I need time to get ready.
We'll get there.
I have a whole training routine and the shooting routine, and I want to make sure I'm shooting 100 hours a day, seven days a week. I want to make sure my accuracy is fully dialed in. I have 100% confidence. My cardio's on point. I got to be ready. So I was like, it can't be any later than like August 5th. I'm like, I need like 4 hard weeks of. I mean, I'm training for it all year round, but 4 hard weeks, almost like you're getting ready for a fight.
In some of those meetings, do you still have maybe executives looking at you like,
oh yeah, they ask weird questions.
I don't understand that. Like, so September 12th through the 23rd is.
You're not gonna find me.
Yeah. And to them, they don't understand how, like, outside of people playing football, like you still see the Christmas games and the Christmas Eve or Thanksgiving. But for me, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, very rarely, all of us kind of like, I'm taking that day. I'm taking that day. And that's kind of like, unfortunately, now we get in these hobbies of hunting. Like, okay, I can't do anything the first week in April. That's turkey season. And September, oh, man.
That whole month's gone.
Yeah. In November, oh, man, the deer are rutting. I don't know that. Y'all got anything in July?
I've had big guests, like important guests,
that
wanted to come in, like September 10th. I'm like, that's not going to work.
Can't do it.
It's not going to happen. Well, it's the only time he's in America. It's not going to work. Sorry.
Let me know if you come back.
Yeah, let me know if you come back. I'm not missing that. It's my favorite time of the year.
I mean, that with it. But funny story that happened similar. And people wonder, like, do you ever get tired of it? You really don't. I mean, I'm sure, like obviously, say in the comedian world, to kind of draw parallels, that opportunity to go out for 30 minutes or an hour to make someone laugh and they're digging on the stuff that you're performing, there's got to be a natural high that comes with it. So there becomes an addictive quality to it, and it's not necessarily about the money. It's just a certain situation that feels good. So you wonder, like, when do I want to step down for this? And it's kind of like, Keith Richards playing guitar. Maybe never. It's like, this is part of it. And I think hunting becomes like that. And to the point with me, like the things I love, and I've been blessed that inevitably my financial opportunities have came from promoting hunting and working for different partners, as is Cam's, and many of us, Remy, Steve, a lot of us. But I'm still so addicted to the point to where my wife, she loves country music, my wife Christy, and so through people we meet, we've got invited to some really cool things, from get-togethers to parties, to situations, awards, to ceremonies, to different clubs. And so a lot of times we'll try to go, and it's actually a cool thing for me because, hey man, I met this person, would you like to do this or that? And one thing in particular happened, my wife loves country music, and there's a lot of those country music guys that I hunt with. So I had gotten a text from a guy that was having some award ceremony around the country music. I forget which one it was, but when they had it at the Dallas Stadium. And anyway, I had got invited. He said, hey, if you want to come out, Waddell, look, man, we'd like to have you at the, man, we'll treat you like one of the singers, and
what is my
so
freaking shot
dude, what's the dates? And they said it's April, like it was I forget what it was. It was whatever it was. It hit right in turkey season, like right when I knew. I hadn't even had anything planned. This was time, but I knew, kind of like September. So I said,
God, he's an idiot. No, that's not shooting, dude.
But I'm not gonna be able to make it.
Dude, we're gonna die now.
My wife and I don't have a relationship where we go into each other's phones and stuff like that. But that particular, my phone was sitting. It was maybe a week later sitting there.
Who was it though?
And that same gentleman had texted me on another matter, and so he had just texted me.
Nice.
So I said, Christy, get my phone. So she did, and somehow she just happened to look at that text, and all of a sudden I couldn't figure out. She was just kind of giving me the cold shoulder, like the rest of the day. I'm like, what did I do? And I couldn't figure out what I did, So finally I was like, look, baby, I figured out a lot of things about elk and turkey. I ain't figured out a woman completely, So I know I done pissed you off some kind of way. I don't know what I did, but, you know, help me understand. She said, you know what? I do have a bone to pick with you. And I was like, okay, well, let me have it, you know, let me have it. And I'm already thinking, I ain't did shit, you know, I don't think. She said, you know what? I know you like to hunt turkeys. I went, okay, all right. And I'm like, yeah, I love to hunt turkeys. She said, but you know what? We could take one night and go to a really cool award ceremony. Maybe we could hang out with Blake and have a drink and just chill and relax. And Luke was going to be, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then she said, well, I saw the text and we were invited to go to the awards. And you quickly just said no, didn't even talk. And I'm like, and then I hit me like, what is I don't know how many turkeys I've seen shot or how many turkeys I've shot myself, but here it is, I'm 50 years old and I'm saying no, just like that, without hesitation to,
Right.
no, I mean, that would be fun. In my mind, I'm thinking, dude, if that was June or July and I had your number, I'd be texting everybody, dude, are y'all going? Can we have a drink, hang out?
Sure.
But it's like, nope, it wouldn't matter if Elvis Presley it's going to be the show. I was like, and then it hit me. I was like, man, I am
A little selfish.
Yeah, and it hit me there, and I did. I sincerely said, I'm sorry, because you're right. I could have just got a commercial flight. We could have flew out there and spent a great evening, had a great date night, and saw the awards and come back. But in my mind, I'm thinking, why would anybody go to a big city in the middle of turkey season? I don't understand that. And I'm still learning.
Hong
Still
Kong,
learning, you know?
P24, what the fuck is
Well, the reality of it is, if you haven't
Is that?
experienced hunting, you don't understand why people are so drawn to it and why the experience is so much
that's bad
more
news.
powerful than anything else you have in life,
Yeah.
other than the birth of your children, you know, being
Yeah.
in love. Well, there's a bunch of experiences that are wonderful in the regular, modern, civilized life. But
Yeah.
when you get that bug, you get that bug, when you hear the swat of that fucking arrow hitting the vitals, and you see the spot right in the golden triangle, you see the blood dripping down, and you see him stumbling forward, you're like, we got him. And every sense in your body is on 10. Your fucking goosebumps have
Yeah.
goosebumps. Everything. It's just, there's nothing like it in the world.
You want to stand up
Yeah.
and tie that bandana like on Rambo First Blood, like
Yeah.
it's just I don't know, it's crazy feeling, and I hope more people get a chance to experience
What
it.
is this? Where's everybody?
But it
It's
is
so hard
unbelievable.
to do.
It's so hard.
Especially like archery elk hunting or archery mule deer hunting. Probably even more difficult.
I agree.
It is so hard to do. To get someone addicted to that, boy, you've got to get a special kind of person that's willing to, like, the learning curve is so long.
And the physicality of that high desert mule deer.
yes.
Oh, it's
And
brutal.
And also, those motherfuckers are smart.
Oh yeah, you think they're not?
Ducking mountain lions for 5-6 years, and they know any little snap of a branch, any little like moving of a rock that sounds like it might have been a predator's paw.
Oh yeah,
They're on a swivel, they're up, and they're bouncing. Boing, boing, boing. See ya.
they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's what other thing people don't realize. You know, they think, oh, you hunters go out there and getting these animals, and obviously the hunters has such a responsibility in the balance of a lot of things. And Mother Nature is, first of all, very brutal, and there's a lot to be learned through nature. There's a lot of things we think we know, but then if you really dig deep and you're in the mountains, you realize, wait a minute, that was all human nature. This is nature. There's a difference. So many examples that you can get into, but at the end of the day, these deer also have coyotes
What
out
the
there
fuck is
and wolves in
that?
some of these places, and
Fucking
they have
heli?
done studies that in some cases
Really?
they feel like an adult male mountain lion can kill up to 100 mule deer, one mountain lion. So you're talking 80 to 100 animals that they kill. So when you think about us, even if we're athletic,
Is that a year?
that's a year. That's one. And they've done all kind of studies. I know the state of Utah has been really proactive, which is great. And what I love about Utah Game and Fish is what they're doing. They're listening to a
that's a
lot
nice
of these mountaineering type of guys who are not, have a doctorate in biology
Oh, maybe B.
or balancing nature. They're just ranchers. They're outfitters. They're hunters. They're somebody that's immersed themselves, and they might not can sit there and recite Shakespeare, but they can certainly tell you what they've seen. They don't claim to know it all, but they can tell you things that they are seeing out there.
There's
And what-
different kinds of intelligence.
100%.
Yeah.
And a lot of the game and fish sometimes will get at times arrogant to say, well, what am I going to learn from a Joe? What am I going to learn from
Right.
Michael? What am I? Remy Warren? Come on, dude. Okay, you hunt a lot, but I got a doctorate in this.
Well, like California's a great example.
Yeah.
Like a lot of their game and fish. I don't even think they call it game and fish. I think they call it fish and wildlife.
Correct.
Yeah, because they don't want the concept of game to be introduced,
Yeah, it's
meaning
crazy.
hunting. Their thought is they want to get it to the point where the predators and the prey balance each other out, where there's no need for hunting, and they would like to reintroduce
I
wolves
think
to
that's
help
it.
in that. They do. It's animal activists that have taken these positions that should be held by wildlife biologists who have an objective understanding of the populations and how to keep them healthy. And the way they're doing it in California is you got mountain lions everywhere.
Yeah.
In this one ranch that I hunt, they had a water hole, they had a pond, and they had a trail cam. They found 18 different cats that visited this trail cam.
See, that
18 different mountain lions.
That goes beyond what biologists will tell you. As a matter of fact, a lot of times, a lot of the studies are now has been changed and everything. The goalposts are being adjusted. But there was a time, I think it was 28 square mile radius, that I know at least in the state of Utah. So I'm not saying every game and fish department, I call it, or fishing game, or fish and wildlife would say, but they had specifically, they said a male mountain lion basically controlled 28 miles diameter. Only to find that in Utah, I've got some friends and outfitters that went out there when they did have the quota tags. Now you can just buy a tag over the counter and you can, or get depredation. You can hunt mountain lion all the time because they realize, look, these mountain lions are killing a lot of elk, a lot of mule deer specifically. On top of that, you don't know what the winter's going to be and what that's going to kill. Then you got wolves, you got bear, you got all this stuff. This outfitter took a business card and he put it down and he said, well, I know y'all think this, but I want to show y'all what I filled the quota. He said, I shot 10 mountain lions in this business card. He said 3 of them was here. So your theory that one male mountain lion is in this 28 mile diameter is completely busted. This is not on anything I've studied. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Auburn University in the wildlife department. I don't have the trail cameras out there. I'm just telling you that with red bone hounds, this is a true statistic. Here's the photos. And so what is
fuck
happening,
that.
a lot of those people got
Getting
together.
destroyed.
And what I love about Utah, they are listening. And they're
Tim is
saying,
down.
okay, so
Horrible thing.
maybe they know something. Let's listen to it. And so they're adjusting it, and now the deer numbers go
what I'm supposed to do,
better. And it's unfortunate
Getting
that
clowned.
really some of these people might be right that nature does have a great way of balancing itself. Way more brutal than what you and I would approach the management process. But everything's changing. I mean, you talk about California, you talk about how they reintroduced the wolf, say, in Colorado. Well, all that was voted in a very urban area, specifically Aspen. All the ranchers,
I
all
don't
that.
think it should be voted in at all.
It shouldn't be.
Ballot biology to me is ridiculous.
It don't
because
make sense.
You
I'm
should
dead.
have to have an understanding about what you're voting on from perspective of the people that are actually in the field.
Correct.
And the reality of mountain lions
Just
is like you're not
surrounded.
going to get an
What
accurate
is this?
assessment from
No.
someone who visits it once a month.
I think you
Carpet.
can go out there and sell tourist tickets to watch the mountain
Carpet
lions.
theme again.
You can't find them.
I tell you
They're
this.
there and they
I'm
know
gonna do it
you're
again.
coming. They smell
don't see
you
'em.
miles away. They're not going to be anywhere near you. And if you do see them, it's rare.
I heard Ranella, because Ranella spends a lot of time in desolate places, and I didn't specifically talk to Cam, but kind of in perspective, I started working in the area of either guiding
Map,
or working with
terrible
an
team.
outfitter, working with companies that were doing shows for, at the time, TNN,
Absolutely
that turned
bad.
into ESPN, now Outdoor Channel, now YouTube, so on and so forth. Well, so as a young kid, in rural Georgia, I finally had a chance to start going and seeing these places, from Saskatchewan to all over Canada. I got to go to Africa, all over Mexico, and now I'm hunting all across the western landscape, not just in Georgia, hunting whitetails and turkeys and squirrels there. I've only saw one mountain lion in the daylight. One. Now, I spent tons. I think Ranella said he saw 6 in his lifetime in the daylight. So what you realize, if you see a mountain lion in the daylight, now I've seen a lot of mountain lions, but they all have been in a tree behind a dog or running behind a dog. I'm talking about just you and I glassing, looking for mule deer. I'm like, Joe, mountain lion.
Right.
You don't see them.
You don't see them.
And same with wolves. I've seen 2 wolves in my life. Both were one was in the Yukon, one was in Alaska, in the daylight. I've heard them countless times. You know, we've been camping in spike tents, and you hear the wolves. I've heard them all across places where the wolves exist, but you don't see them. Another perspective is even coyotes. I have 500, a little over 500 acres I live on in Georgia, and so I noticed that I was finding all kind of fawns, and they did a bunch of studies from University of Georgia, Auburn
Really?
University,
No
talking about
damage.
how many deer that
Really?
coyotes eat, which you can't blame them. Why would you not eat a
Really?
fawn in the fawning time of year and feed your pups? So
Really?
I decided, actually, of all people
I'm
who got
gonna
me
get
into
blind.
trapping, it was Blake Shelton. He was trapping in Oklahoma and loves it. And so I'm like, my God, if this country singer who hosted American, you know, or The Voice can trap, I got to learn about this. So I dug deep, and 2019 and 20, man, I just dug in and just learned a lot more about trapping instead of putting out dirt hole traps or leg hole,
Get fucked.
dirt hole traps and
Oh, fuck.
different things. And so I caught in 2021, I caught like 22 one year, 19
Worried
another
about the
year, just on
mouse.
500 acres.
Really?
And if we go hunting tomorrow, now think about 20 dogs that are smaller than a German Shepherd, but a small, you know,
What is he
K9
doing?
dog
Come on.
that lives on your property. Some are passing through. To think that in a 4-week period I could catch 22 coyotes. That at times, you know, hunting a lot, I would see them time to time. Along that, I also caught 7 fox
this
and
left.
2 bobcats, and I don't know how many coons and possums. So for people to think that you see this all the time, you don't. I live there. And when I'm home, every day I'm up and I'm riding, checking food plots, putting in food plots. I got bulldozers, I got different things, and tractors trying to make the wildlife habitat better, to make sure I got better areas for my turkeys to brood, making sure I'm planting resources, and I don't see these things. And this is all I've ever done. So the people that live in Aspen or just out of LA, you know, not trying to throw shade on them, but you don't know, man. I don't know how to hit a half pipe like Tony Hawk either. So I'm still learning.
Nothing.
So for me to say that, to think that you
Really?
can just spend nearly $4.8 million, $5 million to reintroduce wolves and think you're going to get tourists come out there and look at them. These wolves, if they could talk, they're like,
Yeah.
these people don't have a clue. You're never going
That's
to see
weird.
me.
Well, not only that, but they took wolves that were already depredating livestock.
Yeah,
That's
and
the ones
moved them.
that they captured, and they moved them to Colorado, where they're going to continue to do the same thing.
I read something the other day. You see they removing one of those herds? They're trapping them and removing them because of all the depredation of killing livestock.
Yeah.
Guess what? If a mountain lion kills 100 deer, one, and then he's, okay, God bless the fact that he is nature and he's hunting a deer or an elk. But guess what they do when that starts running low? They're like, man, that dog looks good.
Yeah.
As
We
a
were
cat.
talking about this yesterday in San Francisco when they kill mountain lions in the Bay
Are you
Area.
looking for me?
50% of their diet is pets.
Ain't that something? And
Crazy.
all is well. All these PETA
Yeah.
members, they're all fine, long as it's your dog, your cat.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden, you let a herd of deer come in and eat their $40,000 worth of landscaping, and a mountain lion kill their pet. They're secretly calling me like, hey, bone collector. I'm not gonna lie, that's a little offensive, but
We need you.
so how quiet is your bow and arrow? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
hypocrisy. Is this
Yeah.
hypocrisy.com calling me? It's like,
Well, it's uneducated.
it's uneducated.
They just
Yeah.
don't know what they're talking about, and they don't have any experience in it. And again, like we talked about, the idea, the mass media idea of a hunter is very negative.
It's very negative.
Very
And
negative.
It's sad because what you'll find too is some of the best people in society.
Some of the best people.
I mean, they're really down to earth.
Mhm.
I mean, sit around a campfire with somebody that's grew up very rural. Their excitement of talking about everything typically is pretty awesome. From
Also, the appreciation of hard work.
they very much appreciate, and I
Yeah.
think that's even my dad, man. He's 71, and I said, Dad, you ain't gonna believe it. Joe Rogan texted me and invited me to come up on the show, and he said, man, I like that Rogan. He said, that dude. It's funny anytime I talk about my dad, I gotta go into that impersonation. Be like, that Joe, man, he's stout, man. He work out a lot, and I'm thinking, how does my dad know the routine? Knows that I like him. Of course, he loved that
Yeah,
you
me.
had Trump on, and that you had kind of bringing some light to that and give him an opportunity to talk. And so I find across the board, same conversation I had talking to some squirrel hunters, talking about Cam Hanes. You know, it's like Cam is a beast. You know, he runs, he does this stuff, and what brought me and Cam back together to even going out and talking on his podcast. You know, we grew up close to the same age, same trajectory. I'm the Southern guy, he's a West guy. He's a fitness guy. You know, I'm kind of a little Debbie eater, fried chicken, collard green, but we still figured out a way. I always said, somebody asked me, so what's the difference between you and Cameron Hanes? I said, Cameron Hanes runs quickly to the top of the mountain. And I sat down and I call him off the mountain. I'm gonna figure out how to communicate with him, you know. And I said,
There's a lot of different ways to crack
there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, as they would say. But at the end of the day, I was talking to some squirrel hunters over in Alabama, and these guys, prototypical what you'd pull up, looked like
Don't even
Billy
have to
Coleman
drive.
from where the red fern grows. You know, had squirrel dogs, and one of the guys, he had to be in his 60s, and literally I had some chewing tobacco. He said, "Man, you friends with that Cameron Hanes?" And I said, "I am." I said, I've known Cameron a long time. He said, "Man, he seemed like a good dude." And I don't know why it hit me like, this guy, I wouldn't
Listen, that's
expect to mention Cameron. And so quickly, I contacted Cameron. I said, "Man, I just had a cool conversation." And so he and I quickly kind of said, "Man, why have we not even hunted together? Like, we've been at trade shows and stuff and done some stuff." And so that's been really cool for me, that old friend I've known a long time, to get back in camp. And the conversations are so funny. We get to laughing and cutting up, and I don't know, it's crazy.
One of the beautiful things about social media for hunting
So
and
fast, you-
podcasts for hunting is that people have an opportunity to hear a completely different perspective about what it is that wasn't available before that. I got into hunting because I started watching Spirit of the Wild.
Ted, dude, I love Ted.
That's when I got fascinated with it, and then I watched Ranella's original show, which, oh God, I can't remember the name of it. He had a show.
It wasn't Meat
on
Eater,
the-
though. It
No,
was
no,
before
no,
Meat
before Meat Eater.
Yeah.
God, I forget the name of it. But his show, it didn't last very long, but I thought it was really interesting. And I knew Helen Cho, because Helen Cho, who worked with Ranella on that show, she also worked with Bourdain. And so, you know, I was friends with Bourdain, and so I got introduced to them through that, and Helen got Steve on the show. He didn't even know what a podcast was.
He did.
He was like, "What are we doing here?" We were filming out of the Ice House in Pasadena at that time. The Ice House, the comedy club in Pasadena, and that's where we had our studio. And so there's Ranella sitting there. He was like, "Oh, kind of a little dismissive of this. Like, what is this nonsense?"
Yeah.
And then now he's got one of the biggest podcasts in the space. It's
He's
funny.
done a phenomenal job, man.
Oh, he's great.
He has. I was when Ranella had reached out and I had a chance to be on his podcast. You know, I would say I'm a very secure person, but at the same time, I know I'm country. You know, I know I'm the, you know, for lack of better words, the guy that, you know, I kill a lot of stuff. You know, ain't no way to say it any better. I can say harvest, pluck, take, but at the end of the day, you know, I grew up where
Come on.
in Georgia, we could kill
Still
10
there?
deer legally a year. So mostly with a bow. And then Alabama, the neighboring state, you know, you could kill a buck and a doe a day for a long time in Alabama. And there was people that tried to do it. It wasn't ever, "Get you a good one this year?" Like, "Yep, 47. Like, what? Like, yeah, I you know. And so at first I was, you know, when I first started meeting and hanging with Ranella, I thought, man, I hope he don't think I'm just this old redneck crazy dude that, you know. And then once we've become friends, it gets back to the whole how everything is so much tighter than you realize, and how we all have so much respect for each other in different ways to bring it. And it's just like anything. I mean, you know, you got different players on the team, all playing for the same team, but they all have a different skill set. And so we all grow up a little different. And so again, I just assumed growing up in my small little area, just out of Manchester, Woodbury, Georgia. I really think the area I was from was called Booger
Nice.
Bottom, Georgia, and I just thought, well, Booger Bottoms are everywhere. Well, you find out there is a lot of different little names.
I
There are
have
no
so
lights
much
there.
armor.
But I just really
People
assumed everybody
complain.
did, and I
Get a
was
face,
just
really.
completely devastated when I went to the
That's me.
city. And
Good
you
life.
know, and I'd tell somebody like, "Man, you know, what do you do?" It's like, "Man, I work for a company. We do hunting shows, T&N." You know, I'm so proud, thinking, "Man, I should be able to pass out a business card and meet a girl with this." You know, like, "Oh my God, you're a killer. You kill bands," and it just, bro, it just completely devastated.
Because you had never been around people who were anti-hunting.
I didn't know it existed. I mean, I was that naive. I did not
How
know
old
it
were you
existed.
when you first encountered people that were anti-hunting?
I was in my early 20s.
Oh,
I was in my early 20s, and
What how was it to wrap
You
your
say
head around
Mexicans are
that?
juicy,
it blew
dude.
me away. And
And people
Yeah,
that eat meat
Zeus.
too, by the way, right?
yeah, I mean,
It's really weird.
It really hit me when I started traveling. I literally was like a kid that was just, getting up every morning for Christmas. I was having a chance to work for Bill Jordan, and I had met him through winning a turkey calling contest, and he asked me, him and David Blanton, I can't say enough of great things about Bill and David. David Blanton believed in me he always believed in me so much, and he said, hey man, we'd love for you to help guide hunters. And back then, everything around hunting was media, outdoor life, field and stream. So there wasn't any hunting shows, but then about that same time, TNN, after these NASCAR races, introduced an outdoor block, which if you go back and look, people like Jackie Bushman, at the time, Bill
What year was this, Ron?
This would have been, for me, it'd have been a 92 or 3 or 4, somewhere right in there.
Did they even have rangefinders back then?
No rangefinders. I bought the first one I'd ever seen. It was Bushnell, and I still
Ah,
have it.
you thought of
That
my
thing
kid.
looked like a car battery. It's like, it's literally, I had safety straps. I had like chains. I like one strongest man contest to hold this thing up. But they had the little ones you could roll. And it even tell you when the temperature changes, it's going to give you
Those
an
kids in this
inaccurate,
thing
it's
with
going to
them
change
dogs,
with
that's
the weather.
crazy.
But no, it was just guessing. But
Was it a laser rangefinder?
it was the first ones was like a roller. You rolled two things. I forget how exactly it worked, but it come and it gave you basically
a rough estimate.
a rough estimate, and it'd be like 40 yards. And then Bushnell, to my knowledge, come out with one. It was a bigger one. It looked, like I said, it kind of looked like a small battery. It was big, and it had a laser on it, and you could range it, and it gave you, the yardage.
And obviously it wasn't angle compensating.
It didn't have any of the arc, the angle, range compensation, had any of that. And the first person I ever saw that even talked about that was Chuck Adams. I was videoing with him back in those TNN days, and Chuck.
We should explain to people, like, the angle compensation is like an arrow is quicker going downhill. So if you're shooting uphill or downhill, the angle, you have to gauge how fast the arrow's going to go, the feet per second, based on the angle. So if it might look like it's 50 yards as the crow flies, your rangefinder might say 42.
Correct.
And you got to put your sight at 42 yards, otherwise you'll shoot right over its back.
And it works.
Yeah, it works really well.
It's unbelievable. And that, to me, I didn't know existed.
Have you ever fucked around with those Garmin sights?
No, I haven't. I've always wanted to try one.
It's great in theory and great when it works.
So when it works.
Yeah, I had a problem with it a couple of times when I gave up on them, and I'm hoping they're going to get better. And then they outlawed them in Utah. I tried to bring it to Utah a couple of years ago, and they passed a law, maybe last year. And the best thing about it, though, it's like a red dot. You get that dot, you have a clear sight picture, no
You can
posts.
see just that dot.
Just that dot on the vitals. It's amazing. And the fact that you could go to full draw and just press a button to range, and then say maybe the animal moves 15 yards to the left,
Just hit it again.
press it again, and you get a range, and you have a perfect shot. But some people think that that's cheating. But it's the same. It's just taking a step out. Instead of picking your rangefinder off your bino pouch and checking it, and then changing your sight, and then drawing back. With this, you're doing it right from draw. So from full draw, you can just keep getting ranges. And then you can also hit it once, and then a second time, and you get pins. So you get 20 to 80.
Nice.
Yeah. So even if you...
So then all your pins would come up based on that.
But if you just want an accurate range, you get that one button press, and it'll give you exact range. And it's based on everything is compensated into the sight itself. So angle compensation is built into the sight itself. You put in the speed of your arrow.
So if you're shooting 285 feet per second.
Exactly. It's all factored into your bow. It's pretty incredible.
I liked that a lot because, and I think I've heard you even mention this. What I love about archery is obviously you got these windows. Everything ain't just sitting out in the yard where you're shooting.
Right.
You're shooting through the woods, especially if you're out there elk hunting. You got these windows, and there was a site years ago that I remember, and it worked
look at this
in
shot.
theory great, but it wasn't like the
Oh, no,
Range
no.
or the Garmin, but they had these fiber optics that were glued to the middle of basically of a piece of glass that went into the sight housing. So you would buy this glass housing that, okay, if your bow was 280 feet per second or 290 or 300, 320, and your pins were preset. So you went in and got your top pin dialed in. So then you had all these, but your sight viewing was good. The problem was when it rained or if it got dirty.
Foggy.
Yeah. And what I did like about that is the fact that the reason I've always liked pins, multiple pins, is the fact that I could see my whole sight picture where my arrow is going from 20 all the way out to even if I'm shooting 80. In this case, most of my sights I set up from say 20 to 60 or 20 to 70. I try to put as many pins on my sight as I can. A lot of people don't like it because they think it's clutter, but once I've mentally got used to it, if I range a bull, say 65, when I pull back, without having to do any other calculations, I put my 60-yard pin on that bull, it's in the clear, and then quickly, now it's like a memory of going back, and I quickly go back up to my 20-yard pin, and I'm looking all the way down through and estimating, is this arrow gonna arc through? But basically from 20 all the way out to my desired where I want to hit, I can see the arc of my arrow based on my pin set good. So
you know if there's a gap in the trees,
I know the gap,
you're gonna be able to get
but
right
I know if I'm at 60 holding dead on that
what
clear
the
spot,
fuck,
but I
man?
got a limb at 30 and my 30-yard pin's in the middle of it, I know like, oh crap, I'm gonna hit that. So now I can just squat down. So that's why I don't like as much a single pin technology. And then quickly, what I like about the pins, it's clutter, it's kind of old-fashioned, but I do like that a lot from that standpoint of trajectory of the ability to kind of kill or to take the fill a tag. And
55.
Cam and I talked a lot about those things. We talked a lot about the release. I definitely like, I like the handheld from if I really want to try to hone in and be a little more disciplined and kind of not feel it go off and shoot just completely surprised. I like that, but I don't think that traditionally works as great for hunting because of the fact I think you do have to know and to make that arrow go right now if you consistently have to, even in Texas. I mean, we're shooting animals at 20 to 30 yards, those deer, and
sometimes the opportunity is
sometimes they walk in, they're dogging a doe, they're coming in. Every deer ain't coming in just to eat corn or feeding the food plot. They're coming in, they got one thing on their mind, and that's mama is ready, and so they're coming in grunting. So that deer runs and stops, and you got to be at full draw, know he's 27, come back, and you got to send it right now.
You know what I describe it as? The difference between practicing free throws and basketball.
100%.
That's it.
Stephon Curry is not. It is. I mean, dude.
You don't get a chance to set up and have a surprise shot.
100%. That's a great way. To
that's
make
really what it is. I think practicing, sure, but I think there's moments where you got to make that sucker go off. But then,
oh man,
there's great hunters like Levi Morgan who hunts with a hinge.
Oh, dude, I mean, just an animal.
Yeah.
He's probably the most decorated archer that I know. I mean, that dude.
Maybe of all time.
Yeah, because like Ulmer, Gillingham, all those guys are heroes of mine. I mean, like, I very much look up to them. And if I can ever pull them aside, I just wear them out trying to learn,
Right.
And but Levi is right there, dude, as far as winning and what he knows. And he, what, another thing about Levi, I got to give him credit. That dude is a cold-blooded killer, man. He is a great hunter too. Sometimes that don't translate.
Killing everybody.
I know some people that are great tournament.
Right.
I mean, 3D tournament ASA IBO winners.
Right.
But it doesn't go over into the ability to just fill
free
tags.
throws.
It's free
throws versus basketball.
Yeah, no doubt.
It really is. Like you're standing weird. One leg is down, one leg is up. You're on the side of a hill. You got to cant your bow a little bit. You lean your bubble into the wind. There's a lot of shit going on.
A lot.
of shit
And
going
then you
on.
got the nerves. You never get completely over that. People ask me all the time, do you ever get nervous or get fucked? People like, man, almost every time. It's like, I think that's when, if some of that, yes, you get good at kind of somewhat like stage fright. I saw a clip of Elvis Presley. I thought it was so unique. I saw a clip of Elvis Presley the other day on this YouTube clip, and he was completely in panic. And this was like right in the prime of his career. He was walking around, and it was a narrator. So yes, Elvis notoriously would get just afraid every time he went on parade. And I'm like, this is the king.
Right.
But he was just pacing. He was being short with a couple of people. I wish I.
What?
And anyway, he walks out there. I'm sure he crushes it. But I think it's similar to probably how some of those football players running out on the field. There's no way you got all this clicking in your head. Like, oh man, I got to remember. Belichick has told me that he's introduced this new offense. I'm not sure. I don't know if I can read. I don't know how I'm gonna read this offense. I think hunting's similar, as to where everything has to click. But you still get that now is my opportunity.
Yes.
And dude, it still is overwhelming. And then to control it, and then when you fit that air through that window, and then you can pick up the phone and call your
Yeah.
family and say, "Baby doll, don't buy no steak because I'm bringing it home." It's again, it's just it's not like you want to disrespect the animal, but you just achieve something.
Yeah.
Grocery shopping in the wild is what you do. Yeah.
I think it's something that's very difficult to do that you care a lot about. And anytime there's something that's very difficult to do that you care a lot about, you're going to get nervous.
100%.
And then and especially with hunting, there's one moment where you pull that trigger. There's one moment.
Yeah.
There's one moment. So you've been practicing, you've been preparing, you packing your gear, getting ready, all for this millisecond in time where
Yep.
you release that arrow and you watch right in there. And it's very difficult to master. I don't think you ever master it, you become proficient at it. You become good at it. But even the best hunters make bad shots sometimes.
Absolutely.
The animal moves, the wind takes the arrow in a weird direction, it hits a branch going in. You see it all the time. It's not an easy thing to do, so of course you're gonna have those nerves. But that's part of the reward of being successful, is that if you can get through that nervousness, and I think it helps you in everything you do in life. I think anytime you do something really hard, very difficult, I think that ability to overcome that difficult scenario helps you with everything in life.
100%. And when it comes to archery too, you're on that ragged line to where it's subconscious. You can go from, you can be the hero, or you can be zero that quick.
Right.
All of that time, the money, the energy, the time that you did step away from the Netflix special in your case because, hey, I'm elk hunting.
Right.
You know you got to somehow communicate with your buddies. Oh man, I missed. Or worse, I made a bad shot.
Right.
Let's let him lay. And so everything that you look forward to that whole year, you could let yourself down. So it's a very individual, lonely feeling.
Yeah,
And
and
you-
you think about that before
No.
you pull the trigger.
No.
You can never think, I hope I don't make a bad shot, because
You
you'll make a
can't.
bad shot.
You can't.
Yeah.
And I'm always, are you always positively thinking when you're like, I'm
Yes,
not
there's a
gonna-
team.
Yeah.
Are you thinking positive?
I have to.
I do too.
Yeah, I think
Hey,
you have to.